in time to change some parameters. This bidirectionality and this communication, it's not always obvious because it depends on the heterogeneity that we have at a network level or physical architectures that we have. From the point of view of the requirements or basic functionalities that we identified, in this slide we have the main requirements, such as, for example, being able to represent graphically and simply what devices I have and what is their status, being able to change that status in an intuitive manner, and the information has to be coherent regardless of the kind of interface it is shown in. For example, at home, if I have domotic systems, probably I would have a small screen in, well, color screen or black and white screen. It depends on the cost of the equipment, or it depends on the manufacturer that has produced this or how much we have paid. But there are some touch screens where you can control these parameters. The idea is that if you press something on that screen, well, we could see the status automatically there. So this is common and coherent information that you can find throughout the whole domotic system. And from the point of view of the interface with the user, this is a picture of a remote control, which is an MHP. These are the standard keys. By default, all of the manufacturers will include these in their remote controls. As for the rest, depending on the remote control, we can have other keys or less keys. Well, I didn't bring my remote control from Asturias, but I have this one over here, and I want to show it to you so that you can see that there's the from up, bottom, right, left, the OK, the 4 different colors. These are the standard keys. If we develop an application and to interact with a specific element, we have to press the button exit. Well, maybe with those 4 devices that I have in my lab, I have that remote control with that key. But if I go to another home, well, there's a different button, a different remote control, and that can be a barrier to interact. So we need to take into account that this is, at the end of the day, what we have to interact with the user. And besides this, other issues that we need to take into account, because there's different designs compared to web designs, is how we browse through the application. Also, subjects linked to the text, colors, language of the application, and the TV set itself. Tube TV is not the same as a plasma TV. And I will show you a video later on. I don't have the domotic system and everything here, but I can show you some images. And if you're interested in quote-unquote playing with it, we can do that. And you can come to Gijón if you wish. As for the different layers of the system, it's 4 logical layers. The bottom one would be a communication layer, which is TCP/IP, because the communication fashion with the external network, right now, what we can find in the market are Ethernet communications or modem-based communications. If we check architectures or domotic networks of different X10, busing, and others, all of these integrate or have as part of their structure a specific gateway, TCP/IP gateway. That's why we have chosen this communication gateway. And the third layer, which comes on top of it, it's the management of all of these domotic devices. And I did want to mention here the following. Layer 2 and Layer 3 have been separated because, well, they might look the same, they might look alike, but it's different things, because physical device management is one thing, but the functionalities linked to those physical devices is something different. And I'm saying this because maybe a supplier might have a device among its products, among its product catalog, for example, 4 digital entries and exits, and maybe one input controls one element and another input controls another element. It's the same physical equipment, but when representing this in the interface, we have to represent this with 2 different elements that are controlled in an individual and independent manner. So we have the device on one hand and the functionality on another hand, and this functionality is linked to the top layer, which is visualized in the interface, the user interface. This would be the use case that I was talking about before. We have done this test with the domotic bus, which is called busing. Why did we choose busing? This is a technology developed by a company in Asturias. These are low-cost equipment, and the company gives its protocol to other manufacturers so that these other manufacturers can integrate their devices. So it's not a proprietary, it's not a black box, it's not something closed, but it's something that makes things easy, and it's a pro. It's something positive about it. As for this kind of devices that we have done in this first concept test, here we have the technical name, which is the bus, which is that gateway that I was talking about before, linked to the home automation network. And with the Ethernet, we have this connection. And here we have a picture of one of the test panels that we have in our labs for alarms, light control, etc. And the user has here the interaction with the remote control. And we have this loudspeaker here because we're integrating auditory feedback and different messages, spoken messages, and also integration of recognition, not through the computer devices we have, but through an external device, such as, for example, a PDA, which is also based on standards. Here we have two shots of the two basic functionalities where we can analyze a lot of different typical projects and different cases of different installations. These are the two main issues. First of all, it is view selection. We select between different views or maps. For example, if it's a two-story flat, for example, if we have, for example, a home and we want to have it divided based on rooms, or maybe we want to have one map or several maps. And on the left, we can choose between the different views, and we can just move around from right to left, and that's it. And once we have selected the map, we have the detail of all of the elements that we find there, how they are, their status, and we can browse there. At the top, that's the initial part, and at the bottom, those are different common options in the different kind of screens. And as I told you before, they can be associated to those four color buttons. We cannot just say by definition green is for this or yellow is for that, but there has to be a coherence. And there's non-written criteria, such as, for example, red is to exit the application. It's like a general consistency that we have. That's the most common thing, red for exit. And in the lab, as we said before, we have several kind of TV sets, different kind of decos, and we can have the whole chain, and we can have the whole digital TV sign and also the application. And this is just a 2-minute demo so that you can have an idea about it. I don't know if we're going to be able to see the whole of it.
Bueno. Aquí tendréis como
Well, as I told you before, if you press green, well, I pressed zoom, and here we have all of the different maps, and here we can move from right to left to select whatever with the OK button. We can select the map we want. And then at the top menus, we can have a detail of how, what the status is of the different elements. And here we can see the element in the map itself. If it's an on-off light, just by clicking on it, we change the status. If it's a dimmer light, for example, and we can have a special configuration based on percentages there, what we would see is a window like this, a pop-up window like this, where we can browse top bottom around the different options, and we can configure the light level. And if we get out in the automatic screen, we can see that percentage that has been updated. I'm not going to go through the whole menu because of time reasons. If you want, later on I can show you in more depth all of the different things. These are, for example, the blinds, something similar for the blinds. And this is the programming device. Here we can program things as Mercedes was mentioning before. So just for example, put on the heater throughout November at 7 o'clock, and you can do it again, top, bottom, right, left. There's no more mystery to it. And now we are evaluating and we're doing different usability tests. We have here this screen where we can configure color issues, we can activate the audio, and we can also choose language. Here at the top, this has to do with the colors of the different labels and the different colors in which we can show the element where we're focusing on in the map. So here we have black and white, for example. I don't know if you can hear. Well, here it is giving you some feedback about the different commands. Now I'm going to exit. This was just for you to have an idea. And finally, I would just like to mention that the application is running on a standard deco that we can buy. And we just need this Ethernet application. It has to be compatible with the MHP standard, and there are several versions in there. And this is based in 112. We do not need to buy extra hardware. And as I told you, this is based on standards, both the MHP and the voice-based part where we're starting to work on. And this application is built dynamically, both the maps and the devices that we have in all of them. And as for the future tasks to do, we can validate